Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Japanese Shabu podcast. We are gonna kick off with some Gachiakuta discussions, and I just wanna talk about this. I am a manga reader, and I am very happy with how well the Studio Bones is actually animating this series, and the colors look great. The animation quality is amazing, and the voice acting is pretty spot on. And I haven't watched the dub, but from what I'm hearing, the dub has been really good. So you, one of the best parts about Gachiakuta is you can watch it however you like, whether you want to watch a sub or whether you want to watch a dub. Great way for new anime fans or any anime fan to just get into a new seasonal anime. So very highly recommend Gachiakuta. So this episode kind of starts off with uh the whole narrator just kind of like putting words together, kind of putting sentences together about how this world works. And so I'm gonna read off some of the ways it works. It is said that the object treated with care, a soul will come to inhabit it. And then, so basically, what it's saying is like the more you care for an object or something you of value that you put in, it actually makes it come alive. So anything with any sort of value is actually not just any object. You whatever you make it worth is what it's gonna be, and it could even come to life essentially. And that goes more into the power system, which is gonna be explained or hopefully get into like episode 2 or episode 3. So I don't really want to spoil that for anime onlys. And then we see how this like world is kind of like treated in this it's called the sphere. And basically right here, everybody's like kind of like super clean. They're very not, they don't really like anything that's damaged or scratched up. They want to have everything just be perfectly neat and perfectly clean. So when anything gets any kind of like filth or scratch, they just throw it out. And these are like the people with power or people with wealth. And not only do they do this with objects, they also kind of do this with humans, as is later stated that even humans who are deemed too trashy or too filthy, or if they commit a crime, they usually get tossed away just like any other dirt or trash would. So in this world where like trash and filth is not very welcomed, we have our main protagonist Rudo, who just starts off kind of trying to look around to see what people have thrown away, because a lot of these people, even though the stuff could be fixed or could be still have some sort of use to it, they just decide to throw it away, and instead of rather like fix it, they rather replace it with something new. And they kind of like have this whole society divided into one where it's like the people that actually inherit the sphere, and then the other half is kind of like the people that don't have anything. They're kind of like labeled the tribesfolk. So these are the people that are usually filthy and usually get treated like trash. You can honestly see that they don't have a good way to make any wealth or any sort of like any sort of way to move up in society. And Rudo kind of like goes to the facility where the trash is, right? And he gets shot up, and eventually, like, people keep talking about him, even in where the Trifolk were. They're kind of like, oh, why is he doing this, doing these trash raids? Like, he's just gonna cause problems for the rest of us. So they're kind of like, you already see kind of Rudo being labeled a bad person, even by people he lives within. And he just always goes there to like try to grab other people's trash to make them into something useful, which is what he does with this bunny that this girl just like tossed away that he found there. And this girl like walks up to him. Chiwa was her name, and she's like the only one that kind of treats Rudo with some sort of like he's some sort of person, like an actual person, and not like somebody who's the son of a criminal, which we found out that Rudo's dad was actually sentenced to the pit, which is like where they send all the humans that are deemed trashed or criminals or people to be disposed of because they've done something wrong that people in the sphere don't like. And because Rudo's dad is is the it was labeled a criminal, he eventually gets labeled the son of a criminal, and also like basically put in the same way where like, oh, when's he gonna be just like his father eventually? Like we should just get rid of him now and save us the trouble of having to do it later. But even though everybody in the side of town where Rudo is, there's still light and hope in there where this guy Recto actually is taking care of Rudo, and took care of Rudo since he was a child. He found him, and he and starts poking fun at Rudo like, hey, you could have just like, given her the stuffed bunny instead of like making a fool of yourself. I'm sure she would have like really appreciated that. And we get a little backstory of how Rudo feels about Recto and how he's very grateful that he has raised them and all that, because when his father was condemned to be the criminal and sent to the pit, he was basically, he felt like he was left alone. And not only that, he had like a big major accident which completely wrecked his arms, and he's still kind of recovering from that, where like he says that he's always feeling in constant pain. But because Recto came in to save him and to take him in and give him some of the gloves, this pair of gloves that he's now wearing that people call like, that essentially look all worn out, kind of like trash in this world. And because he gave him those hands, he's like, well, my hands don't really ache as much when I'm wearing these gloves, so you can kind of take like some symbolic type of you can have it be symbolic, where it's because the gloves are kind of like Recto's protection towards him, and also you can just see it as like, because he doesn't have to see his hands and the accident, he can actually view himself as more human or more worthy, which is really interesting for me because Rudo's just, you can see that Rudo just absolutely places value in everything but himself. So the fact that these gloves kind of like give him that sense of acceptance and sense of pride in himself is really interesting. And later on, we see we see Rudo try to find Chiwa because he wants to actually give her the stuffed bunny. And on his way there, we kind of see what happens to people that get sentenced to the pit. And not only do we get to see that, we also get mentioned that everything eventually ends up in the pit, like all the trash that this sphere people don't want anymore, get thrown out to the pit. So like you can kind of see this is their way of the sphere's way of like staying clean, or like putting putting a wall up and putting a society society wall for like that there's even something worse than tribesfolk. Like anything that goes to the pit is either considered non-existent or dead, or just the absolute worst of the worst. It could be like even consider hell, as the sphere is like really high up. So like sphere is kind of what could be the society version of like heaven, whereas the pit essentially sends everybody to hell. So Rudo ends up giving the doll to Chiwa, and he's all happy about it, all gleaming, all like, oh, I gotta go tell Recto that I actually accomplished the task of giving her the doll. And once Rudo arrives to where Recto is, there's this masked guy that was eyeing him before that had completely uh gone in there to take care of Recto, and kind of, so he ended up, this mask guy ended up killing Recto, and Rudo tried to stop him, but he obviously is too weak and couldn't really get the job done. And eventually, when he's trying to see Recto and try to take care of him and make sure he doesn't pass away, Recto kind of tells him, "Listen, Rudo, you gotta change the sphere. It is only something you can do." So like, on Recto's dying words, he kind of tells Rudo that the eventual goal for him would be to change the way this society works and change the way that this hierarchy works, to where like everybody can have equal standing or equal opportunity, because the way things are going is only uh, going to continue to provide this kind of separation of classes in it. But unlucky for Rudo, he gets found out by the apostles as with blood of Recto, and instantly gets labeled the criminal that did the deed. And even though Rudo tried to explain that it wasn't his doing, there was like really no way for Rudo to prove his innocence, as there's no other bystanders, and the mask guy just kind of ran away after knocking him out a bit. So Rudo gets sentenced to the pit, and as he's getting sentenced to the pit, you start to really see Rudo come to terms and come to realize how messed up this society is, and how people just want to see blood, and how how everybody starts viewing people that get sentenced to the pit completely different, as almost like worse than trash. Like, if you if there was trash, the people that get sentenced to the pit are even below that. And Rudo's like, yeah, screw all of you. I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna get my revenge, essentially. And as he's getting sent down to before he gets sent down to the pit, he sees Chiwa even turn on him. So like, now he sees that anybody can turn on him, and that no one no one in the sphere is actually who they claim to be, or who they pretend to be, and that people just turn on anybody at any given point without even being proven guilty of their crimes. So you can really see kind of this propaganda just really is ingrained in everybody, that anybody sentenced to the pit is criminal, and there's no going back, no going, and no one doing that anymore. So Rudo gets sent down to the pit, and the animation as he's getting sent down, all the keyframes are outstanding. uh, I absolutely love this first episode, and it lives off an cliffhanger as Rudo gets sent down to the bottom of the pit, surviving somehow, and to to his surprise, it actually is not as bad as he thought, but it does have this stench of like trash. So anything that was smelling, anything that's not of worth is there. So you can already see why he would consider it hell, and especially after it ends off with him encountering a trash beast. So I think this episode was outstanding. 9 out of 10 for me.